I am overwhelmed listening to the voices of those who think they have this singular right to define and determine who belongs in America and who is an American, when it was my forefathers and my foremothers who built this land.
Yo, all right, this is great to start off with. And this is why a lot of these preachers probably need to remove themselves from politics as much as they do. Because the Bible clearly states the law of the land. While this may conflict with Christianity, there is a law of the land that says there's a process to come into this country and you must follow it. If not, you have broken that law. So by the Bible, what he's preaching, these people that have broken the law that's agreed upon, they need to be out. That's where he's going wrong. But see, the congregation, they're emotional, they're liberal. So they're on this whole thing of breaking the law. But far as this law has been set, it's been ran through the judges, through the Supreme Court. They try to have injunctions on Trump. It's been overridden to say that what he's doing is legal. So actually, this pastor should be leaving it alone, but he's not. And I'm going to tell you why as we go along.
I am overwhelmed with gun violence and mass shootings and threats against historically black colleges and universities that ain't had nothing to do with anything that went down this past week.
Here we again. Now he's trying to tie the threats to the HBCUs back to Charlie Kirk. He's warming up to get on Charlie Kirk, which that's what this video is about. But there's no evidence showing that these calls were connected to what happened to Charlie Kirk. But you see how the media is starting to spin the narrative. Instead of us getting to the bottom of this and creating unity, now we have people like him who are leaders that's creating a division, because now he's feeding to this whole congregation that this is a retaliatory thing with the HBCUs. Because if not, it hasn't been proven. Why even bring it up? Except the fact that you know how to manipulate people who aren't consciously thinking about things. They're just riding off feelings. That's a lot of these people who go to these churches. That's what they do. And this is leading to another thing too, of why the church it has the influence that it has, because the father is missing. And I'm going to link that later once he brings up another subject.
I'm overwhelmed with the culture of division and violence that this administration fuels and fertilizes, with an inability to show compassion for those who are in need. I'm overwhelmed to find out that $75 billion is being directed to the policing and the detention of undocumented individuals, while Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and food assistance and 300,000 black women have lost their jobs.
All right, this is where I really want to get into the meat of things. What he just said sounds great, right? Except it's not what the Constitution says. It's all in feelings. It's how people feel. People who don't want to do the work. People who have made bad decisions. Who think that everybody else, the government, the community, should come together and give them something. But what he just told you is not true. It is not the federal government's obligation to provide social things like Medicaid, food stamps. He actually is giving Trump praise for what's supposed to happen. The federal government and governments in particular are really supposed to provide a safe environment for capitalism. How do you do that? You fund law enforcement. You create order. You create structure. So what he's saying here, basically saying that the government is pulling funding from social programs and putting it into law enforcement, that's what's supposed to happen. Because guess what? This guy right here, He's supposed to be providing those things. That's why they say bring the tithes to the storehouse. He's supposed to be providing Medicaid, food assistance. That's what the church is for. That's what God says that the church is supposed to do. There are churches, there's a church near me where people can go get groceries, go get food. I've picked up people who were getting that. So I know that there are certain churches that do it. And then you got other churches like this that are pulpit pimping. So yes, you're not seeing it, but I'm smart enough to sit here and tell you this dude is not telling you the right stuff. He's actually pushing off the responsibility because guess what? He can have this huge church, all this glamorous stuff, probably drive a nice Cadillac. I don't know the dude like that, so I don't know. I'm assuming, yeah. But living nice. And then a lot of the people that's going there are suffering. When he can come together with the community and he can even influence the politicians to push certain legislation that will help the people in the community, not on the federal government, but on the local, the city, the state, the county. Y'all got to stop listening to these people who are just playing into your feelings and actually learn the Constitution. Go read the 9th and 10th Amendments of the Constitution, and it will tell you where this guy is wrong with this statement.
Under this administration, I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed with ICE raids and Klan rallies and threats against the Smithsonian and corporations backing off of DEI and executive orders. And
okay, why are companies involved in DEI anyway? We don't have it in sports. You know why? Because sports is very competitive. And I'm only using this because it's a really good analogy. And it's one of the few places that hasn't given in to DEI. These teams got a lot of money on the line and they want the best of the best. And a lot of these leagues, like basketball, is predominantly black. Football, I think, is about half and half. But when they're out there scouting for players, they're not saying, you know what, he's great. But you know what? He's black. I think we should try to find a white one. They're not saying that. They're going after the best of the best, which is what these corporations want to do. But guess what? When you got a cancer like this coming from the liberal side that's trying to defund companies, make them look bad, and make them go out of business because they're trying to choose the best of the best, and they're not getting on the liberals program of we should pick people of color, people of certain gender, or people who identify as whatever the hell they want to identify as. That's where the liberals are trying to get the standard. Why? Because they're too weak to compete. So instead of competing, getting stronger, going in whatever gym, not literal gym, but whatever gym they need to go into, whether it's college or getting better, getting good at their skill, sticking with something long enough to let it thrive. Most businesses take a few years to a decade sometimes to even turn a profit. But people don't know this. They think things are supposed to happen instantly, and that's not how it works. So instead of doing that, now they've been able to infiltrate a side, the liberal side, to go ahead and try to brainwash people into saying everybody should be included. No, they shouldn't. That's not how nature works. If you can't cut it, you should be cut. And that's what's going on. That's why a lot of these DEI, these companies are leaving DEI because they're like, hey, we want to get back to picking the best of the best. The competition's real out here. There's a lot of things going on right now, especially with AI in China and Russia and all these other countries that are in the AI race. So we don't have time for DEI because whoever figures out this AI thing is going to lead the world. Military, because that's what, AI is going to really affect the military if it hasn't already. So whoever is at the head of this is going to win and will be number one. And that's what we got to get back to. And that's why I rock with the right, because I feel the right is still on that. Stick it to who's number one. We want the best of the best, not trying to leave room because somebody's black or white or brown or whatever.
Supreme Court rulings. I'm overwhelmed by folk who call themselves Christian simply because they invoke the name Jesus and quote scripture from the Old Testament, but never love like Jesus, never try to live like Jesus, never apply the Sermon on the Mount, bear no fruit of the Spirit. I am overwhelmed. And I do not celebrate the killing of anyone. Charlie Kirk did not deserve to be assassinated. But I'm overwhelmed seeing the flags of the United States of America at half staff, calling this nation to honor and venerate a man who was an unapologetic racist and spent all of his life sowing seeds of division and hate into this land. And hearing people with selective rage who are mad about Charlie Kirk but didn't give a damn about Melissa Hortman and her husband when they were shot down in their home, tell me I ought to have compassion for the death of a man who had no respect for my own life.
Yo, why are we comparing apples and oranges? People were upset when that happened. I was upset when that happened. Because it shouldn't have happened. It was a mistake. It should not have happened. A lot of us were upset. But see, you got this race baiter right here who wants to push division. And I'm tired of these people saying that they don't wish death upon somebody or they shouldn't have died. It didn't say but. Because those are the same people that say after but or everything that was said before but doesn't count. And I'm holding that right here. I think a lot of y'all are feeling like that. Just my opinion. But I think a lot of y'all are feeling like that. To me, these are like covert celebrations. Because if you really was moved by his death, you wouldn't be making comparisons. We should all unite and send this man off, because this man didn't do anything. He wasn't out hurting anybody physically. He literally went on college campuses and preached what he believed, the same thing this pastor is doing. But I guarantee you something that happened. This pastor was the past. He wouldn't want the people who disagree with them speaking how they speak. He would want to be seen for the good that he did. And that's all that people are really asking about Charlie Kirk. You can criticize, that's cool, but right now it's not the time. Maybe later when you reflect. But he's doing the same, Charlie Kirk doing the same thing that this guy is doing. They found a crowd, they're preaching their beliefs. And it's okay to criticize, but it's a right and wrong time for it. And to start putting the people against each other is just crazy to me. And that's what he's doing.
I am sorry, but there's nowhere in Bible where we are taught to honor evil. And how you die does not redeem how you lived. You do not become a hero in your death when you are a weapon of the enemy in your life.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, his truth is coming out now. This is how you really feel. And like I said, that's okay. But why spread it now? Y'all act like, and see, this is the thing. This is why a lot of this is happening. People like him and a lot of the liberals, with their words, fascists, Nazis, saying that he was evil. The man was not evil. He probably was more Christian than you, my brother. The man said nothing of evil. He held a mirror to people. I had a mirror held to me years ago. I used to be just like this dude. Hella liberal. Making excuses. Everything was about race. I was being held back by the system. When in reality, I just wasn't trying hard enough. I was settling for less. I was drinking. I was doing all the shit but focusing on what I wanted. I wanted to be in the music industry. Guess what? In the studio, I'm drinking the fifth. Eventually, I got too drunk and couldn't make music. So guess what? I'm asleep. The next day, I'm hungover. Who wants to really get in the studio when they hungover? There are some guys who can do it. Power to them, but I'm not one of them. I can't operate at my full capacity with alcohol. But instead of blaming that, I went 20 years blaming everything but myself. And that's what people like this guy is allowing. He's allowing people who aren't at their full capacity blaming everybody else to feel comfortable and blaming everybody else. Charlie Kirk said, no, I want you to look in the mirror and blame yourself, because only you are responsible for you and only you can change you. That's why I like Charlie Kirk. And that's why these guys get on my damn nerves.
I can abhor the violence that took your life, but I don't have to celebrate how you chose to live. I am overwhelmed.
We are all overwhelmed, man. At the end of the day, we're overwhelmed at you. We're overwhelmed at all these race hustlers. Now we got Benjamin Crump jumping out the woodworks, allegedly over this Mississippi thing that's going on with the two people that were found hung. I got to look into that story, but I think one was white and one was black. But the race hustlers don't do anything for the community. They just come out when stuff like this happen to get you emotionally invested, because they're just like the media. The media only makes money from ads. They only make money if you're invested. And they've got y'all hooked on this race stuff. To me, that's why I feel like they push these race movies. Because you know what? It gets to the youngins, the teenagers. They see the movies. It doesn't empower them. It makes them mad. It makes them want, revenge for something they didn't go through. I can't tell you about slavery. I didn't endure that. And I'm sure nothing I've endured in my life was as worse as that. Which is why I can stand right here and be like, you know what? I'm American. Because they did what they did, and what they wanted was freedom. They wanted the dream too. And we're living that dream, but we still sit here and cry about that we're still oppressed. There are no oppressors. The biggest oppressor for most black people are themselves in their community. The people who are pulpit pimping, these leaders who are pushing these programs just so that they can get 90 to 95% of the money and only give 5% back. You see Brandon Johnson, when he was going against Trump about the National Guard, what did he say? Don't worry about it. Just send us the $800 million. Why? Because he's trying to offset that deficit in Chicago that he's been contributing to. The point of a mayor is to make the deficit better or make the city better. These mayors come in and they make shit worse. And then when you got a guy like Trump who is really trying to fix it, they're like, nah, we don't need you. Send the money. But y'all not seeing that, because y'all can't think out of the race lens. Get out of the race lens. If it's one thing I'm trying to get across to y'all, look at things logically. Look at the results. Stop looking at race. And if you start to look at the results, it's going to make you change your choices to get the results. And I got other videos in here on how to get good results in your life, on how I changed the things I did. But y'all got to stop listening to these preachers. And another thing that he said in here that I really need to hit on, and I probably should have said it sooner, is how he's pandering to black women. Because here's the reality. These black women who got laid off from their jobs, most of them are probably single. And they go to this pastor and give them that money. But this pastor's not going to say, hey, you know what? 300,000 black women got laid off. This should be a lesson. And what's the lesson? Y'all need to go get a husband. Y'all need to create a family. Because if there's two people, there's a less likelihood of both people being laid off. And one person can kind of carry through instead of you being by yourself, single mother, lost your job. Now you hounding the system more after the father for child support and stuff like that. Well, you could just learn to get along with a man and you ain't got to do all that. Y'all can keep it in the house. But nah, these preachers got to keep these black women locked in from finding a husband or a man and keep them locked into the church so they can keep their offering plate full. I wish y'all could see through all this, how I see it. None of it's good. And black people are going to continue to stay stuck until we fight back against this type of stuff. All right, y'all, man. Subscribe or at least like the damn video. I'm out.